The Deputy Prime Minister says he supports a proposal by one London borough to have council tenants evicted if they are involved in rioting or looting. Greenwich Council says it will be seeking the eviction of any council tenants if they're found to have been engaged in criminal activities. Speaking to BBC London 94.9's Eddie Nestor, Nick Clegg said he backs the idea.
Doing what these people have been doing shows such a total and utter lack of responsibility, of kind of loyalty towards the communities in which they live. And I think, of course, that means that it's
so they should lose their property.
You know, if you go around trashing other people's property on your street...
I'm just trying to get a yes or no. Should you lose your property, sir?
I don't think you should continue to be supported in living in a property on that street.
Nick Clegg speaking there. Now that the capital appears to return to a state of calm, many people are asking one simple question: why? The question may be simple, but the answer is not. Aisha Baksh has been speaking to some of those involved in Norwood in South London.
He told me to call him Loke. He said he was a so-called elder of a group of young people, and he spent the evenings of the riots touring London with them. Shops closed early, businesses have been ruined.
I couldn't even get a drink yesterday, I was upset. All the places were shut. But you know what, I can't really knock that because at least there's drinks in the crib, you get me? But apart from that...
You don't take it seriously?
No, I'm not taking it seriously. I really can't, not in the fact of this disrespecting level, no. I'm not taking none of this seriously.
But there are some things he takes very seriously. The shooting of Mark Duggan by armed police, for starters.
Why are you shooting him twice? So therefore, you've created more fuel around the whole UK, innit? So therefore, it's kind of crazy, man. If you're going to do that, they'll expect the repercussions, innit?
As well as a lot of anger towards the police, he's angry at the lack of opportunities on offer.
People want to work. You think people want to be out here selling drugs and all that? No. But you know what? People ain't giving them the opportunity, innit? People say, right, they got the opportunity to do that.
Much has been made of the role of parents in the disturbances. In the same area, I meet Debbie out with her grandchildren. She admits some parents have lost control.
Most parents are working, how much jobs, they haven't got the time to stay at home, know what their children are up to. Some parents of my age group that I know of are not really interested, they're not involved in their children's lives.
You got football nets there and you got basketball hoops as well, but it's not accessible, you know, they've locked it, you know, you can't get in.
Darrell is a teacher and youth worker. He knows many young people who took part in the riots.
I can't condone their behaviour. I don't know why exactly they're doing it. However, I do know that they're bored. I do know that there's facilities and, you know, places where they can't go no more because they've been shut down.
We don't really want to be doing these bad things, but at the same time, you have to improvise with what you got, because if you're broke, you're stuck. If you ain't got no way of making any form of money, somehow, some way, I know people want to be legit, everyone wants to be legit, but it's hard.
Well, the reasons why such frustration and anger erupted on the streets of London is indeed complex, but the views and experiences of the people I've spoken to here can be found in many areas across the capital. Aisha Baksh, BBC London News.
Well, joining me now are Symeon Brown, a community organiser, and Darrell James, a former gang member. Also with us, Lyn Costello from Mothers Against Murder and Aggression. Thank you all for being here. Lyn, if I can turn to you first. We heard there people talking about no hope, no future. Do you have any sympathy for what you've heard there?
Absolutely not, none at all. And, you know, I don't even want to acknowledge that young man, and I'm sorry, I'll acknowledge you two, because you came here to have a debate. And we might have different beliefs, but somebody on the television with a mask, I don't know why you're giving him airtime, with a mask around his face telling us how hard done by he is, I don't want to listen to. Let's sit round a table, and if they really have grievances, we'll do that. But please stop blaming the youth for these riots. This isn't our youth. Most of our youth are at home doing what they should do. 99% of our youth are actually hiding because they're scared to be out on the streets in the last few days. These are criminals. They're thugs. They're organised gang members, they're opportunist criminals, and they're people that just are out for themselves.
Symeon Brown, if I can turn to you, you're a community worker. You hear from a lot of young people on a daily basis. Do you accept that what they're doing is pure criminality?
I think that where I will agree with Lyn is that the majority of young people are at home, and there does need to be a differentiation. I do believe, though, that there is a discourse and a context that does need to be introduced. And I think there are communities that are very much on the periphery of society, in which in these spaces they have their own rules and their own norms and their own hierarchies, and there are certain cycles that exist there that I believe need to be brought into the wider discourse. But I do believe that we are all agreed here that we do need to have safer streets, we do need to have flourishing communities, and I think that even though our perspectives may find difference, I think that the end goal is certainly one of peace on our streets.
So do you think there should be tough sentencing, tougher actions on these people?
I think that we do need to secure the streets, and I certainly believe that there needs to be a sense of justice. But I do think that there needs to be an understanding that where do these people come from? They didn't just come from nowhere. And I feel that sometimes we take the short-term view, and I think the word rehabilitation and outreach and investment, and recognising that there is a part of society that is very much in the peripherals and have norms that we don't subscribe to, and I think that this needs to be brought into the discourse.
If we just have a look at some of the pictures, though, just to remind ourselves of some of the events that were going on, how do those sorts of images of looting, setting fire to things, how does that ever get those voices heard? It almost does the opposite of legitimising their cause.
Views, arson, looting, they're illegitimate. And these people do not have a manifesto per se, but we have to ask ourselves, when we see a section of our supposed society out there carrying out such acts, we have to ask ourselves what is the wider context. And for one, I don't condone such behaviour at all, but what I do ask us to do is consider things like rehabilitation.
So you don't condone it, but you're saying you understand it?
No, I don't. I wouldn't say I understand it. I say that we need to approach it with a wide perspective.
We need to approach it. Our police need to take back our streets. We need to accept the fact that these are criminals. They do not have an agenda except to get new trainers and new televisions and steal and rob and hurt people, and we need to throw the law at them. You know, and if it means locking them up, lock them up. And if their mothers are accepting the televisions they're taking home, lock them up as well.
Darrell, I want to bring your opinion in on this, actually, because as somebody who's formerly been in a gang, what do you make of what you've heard here? Does locking them up help? As a member of a gang, would you have taken part in some of the scenes that we saw?
I would have been in the front line if I was a member of a gang. That's an opportunity. That's a criminal mind you're dealing with there. You're not dealing with kids. That's a criminal mind. That's a very advanced thing. That's 2 steps ahead of the police, 4 steps ahead of the government, 3 steps ahead of their parents. We're talking about sophisticated gang members here. They ain't just stupid kids running about the place. You know what I mean? So to me, that's a worry. We've got organised gangs. We've always had organised gangs in this country. It needs to be sorted and eradicated, as far as I'm concerned. And being a former gang member, I can tell you exactly where their minds are at. Now, this is, for me, it's very scary because it could be the start of things to come.
OK, you say we need to get rid of it. How do we eradicate it?
How do you eradicate it? You have to start from the bottom and work your way up. It's the root. It's the root causes. If you take away things from people like ourselves who are on the front line, if you take everybody off the front line, then there's nothing left. So the government has to figure a way how can it bridge that gap, have people there to conversate. And it's not only bridging the gap, it's about the government listening. You know, Lyn tells me, like she was telling us earlier, they don't listen. They're not interested.
But how does setting fire to homes, looting, you know, creating an atmosphere of fear in London, how does that encourage anybody to listen to them? Is that what they're actually thinking?
I'm not, they're crying out. I'm not, like, the government has to listen, because we're talking about, if you don't do something now, there's other generations that's going to do it. Let's talk about a long-term strategy. You understand? We're not talking, right now, hit the nail on the head. We've got the police, so...
OK, Lyn, what do you make of that, it is the government's fault? And if
we
something
agree,
isn't done,
we agree on an awful lot. Maybe how we do it. You know, all I've seen is community leaders jumping on bandwagons and saying, you know, I don't condone this, but I understand it. By understanding it, you're condoning it, because there's no understanding of this. You know, and we'll have different ideas. I don't believe that... We've had youth leaders say, if you'd have kept my youth club open, this wouldn't have happened. Yes, it would. When I see our police frightened to go in and do something, and they're watching people burn people's homes and cars and mug people, and they're stood there, if we don't get a little bit tough in this country, the yobs and the thugs and the criminals will take over our streets. What really frightens me about that is we're already reading on social networking sites that people are saying we need to go out there ourselves. I don't want to see that. 3 young men died last night because they were trying to protect.
That's not where
our police need to move in. And I'm really sorry, message to David Cameron and Boris Johnson, too little, too late.
OK, to you all, I'm so sorry that we have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed for your views tonight. Thank you. And we will actually have quite a lot of your views from home as well. But let's first get a check on the weather with Peter.